Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen. This is episode 21, Miracles, Moses. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for your support, guys. I really appreciate you listening, sharing, emailing me. It's been great. Some of you have me on Facebook. I really appreciate that. But please like and share on whatever social media you have. Facebook works really well. It gives a little preview of the actual podcast they can click on and actually press play and listen to. Some of the other social medias, it's kind of harder to do that, but I really appreciate you sharing this. The whole purpose of this is to help other people who believe the Bible, who follow Jesus Christ, to be able to understand the Bible better. So please share, like and share. And my email is angrypatriot42@yahoo.com. So you can always reach out to me there if you have any questions or insight or comments. I also really appreciate your support. You can go on Spotify. You can actually click on support this podcast for $6 a month. If you wanted to donate and help me out, I would appreciate that. Let's get into it. So we were covering Exodus. The last time we talked about the 10 plagues of Egypt, how they were real miracles that God did, supernatural, right? One of the big ones was the pillars of a cloud and pillars of fire by day and night for the Israelites to follow. And of course, crossing the Red Sea was freaking huge. And I just really like to imagine what that was like. Because as we understood, we found out crossing the Red Sea, the average depth is over 1,000, I think it was close to 1,600 feet deep. And they walked on the bottom. And there was a wall of water on each side. Can you imagine what that looked like? Even if it was a low tide, low season of the year and the Red Sea was low and it was like, instead of 1,600 feet, it was only 500 feet. Can you imagine 500 feet of water on each side of you? That's insane. The power in that miracle blows the mind. Not to mention they walked on dry ground. That's crazy. And then one of the things I just barely touched on at the end was the song after they crossed the Red Sea. Exodus 15:1. Check this out. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. And there was two things I wanted to point out. That 15 verse 3, the Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Yes, this is a song. But it was a song by God's people that God told Moses to write down that the Lord is a man of war. That's important. Our God is not a passive God. He is a God of justice, a God of war, and judgment, right? So then at the end here, you had verse 20 and 21, Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron. Now we've talked about prophetess before. It doesn't necessarily mean she was foretelling the future. It's just someone who understood the Bible and was telling other people about the God. I know they didn't have the Bible back then, so she was telling people about their God. And she had a proper understanding. So when people explained about God in the Old Testament, they were called prophets and prophetesses. And then Miriam answered them, saying, Sing to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. So the singing, the instruments, the timbrels, the dancing, all of that stuff, I really like that. And the fact that they bring out and give credit to Miriam, who was a sister of Aaron and Moses, right? That's freaking amazing. For that time period, for people to list the name of a woman in a historical document is huge. So we see here from the very beginning that God honored and respected women's rights, if you will, as equal worth among men. So I think that's very important to point out, especially in this day and age when people try and say it's patriarchal and, the God of the Bible is evil and blah, blah, blah. So there's things in there that if you put it in historical context, it makes a huge difference on the way you view our God, the God of the Bible, right? Now, I want to get into some of the miracles of the wilderness when they were wandering for 40 years. This is really cool. The first one here is the bitter water made sweet, Exodus 15:22. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and wilt give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Our God is a healing God. Now, he doesn't always heal, so I don't want you to get that wrong. But you need to understand that our God can and often does heal. Now, we live in a fallen world. That means there's death. That means there's disease that comes upon all people, not just the unrighteous, but the righteous also. But oftentimes, God will heal the righteous, and he would not have done that for the unrighteous. Those who follow God can often receive healing from God. So that's very interesting. And then verse 27, they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. I like to go, I'm not a numerology type of person here, but it's very cool that there were 70 palm trees. And if you keep reading, I believe there were 70 elders that sat under the trees. I'm not sure exactly on the number there or why it was 70, but for God to plan the palm trees ahead of time so that they're fully grown, that takes years, right? And the 12 wells of water so that the 12 tribes could each, divvy up the water and take their time to, God orchestrated history and real geography and people's movements in the desert to where they built those wells at different places so that there were 12 when they got there. Like, it's insane. God is sovereign and he plans all of these things. It's very cool how God takes care of his people. Next one is the infamous manna from heaven. That's in Exodus 16, verse 2. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel again murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Verse 4, then said the Lord unto Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather. And so on. But then he also did a second miracle at the same time here, was the quail coming in. If you keep reading through there, God brought in a strong wind, and there was so much quail that everyone was able to have their fill of meat that night. And if you look at verse 13, it says the quail covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay round about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating, and when the sun waxed hot, it melted. And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. I can't imagine seeing your food magically appearing on the ground every morning, and then as soon as the sun comes up, it like melts away. That's pretty strange. That is kind of magical, right? But God took care of them and made sure that they had food until he brought them to the land of milk and honey. The next one that we see is the water from the rock. That's in Exodus 17. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. And just some clarification, guys, I don't know how to pronounce all of these words. Rephidim, okay? These are what is called transliterations from Hebrew, which means that English translators tried to mimic the sound of the Hebrew word by putting English letters that would make that sound. Okay. So this is not a proper spelling of the words when you read in your English Bible. But if you pronounce phonetically the proper way of pronouncing English, you will approximate the Hebrew word. Does that make sense? It's not a translation. It's a mimicking of the sound. That's what transliteration is. So I will probably get some of these wrong. If you're a better scholar than me, please don't judge me on that. I'm just trying to sound them out using English, okay? So bear with me when I come on these strange words of places and people. Anyways, starting in verse 2, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? So there he was told to hit the rock with his staff, and water came out. That's different from one of the other ones that you'll see later. And then we have the battle with Amalek. Exodus 17, verse 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. So the rod of God, right? He's holding that up above his head. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi. For he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Think of the reality of this one. Have you ever tried to hold up something over your head, like a jug of milk or a gallon of water or a 5-pound weight or something like that? How long can you hold that over your head? Okay. So he had this wooden staff, which at first probably was not very heavy. Maybe it only weighed 2 pounds. I don't know. But they're fighting a war. And as soon as he lets his hand down to rest his arm, the enemy starts to kill his people. So maybe you switch the rod to the other hand and hold it up. And he keeps doing that until his hands are freaking tired. And then he had Aaron and Hur stand on each side of him and hold up his arms until the sun went down and they had completely defeated the enemy. So obviously a very strange miracle there, but clearly the rod of God. So God showing a miracle through his chosen priest, Moses, and helping his people. And that's why they called the name of that place Jehovah Nissi, which means Jehovah is my banner. And one other interesting note here is that Amalek was actually kind of related to the Jews. The Amalekites were sons of Eliphaz, which was Esau's son. Remember Jacob and Esau fought? Even in the womb, they fought each other. And Esau hated Jacob because Jacob stole his birthright and so on. Well, Esau's grandson went off into this land and had a bunch of kids, and these are the offspring of Esau. That's in Genesis 36:12. It tells you that. Amalek was always fighting and striving from generation to generation, is what God said, with Israel, God's chosen people. It's the same thing with the Abraham and his sons. God said that his chosen son would be Isaac, but Abraham had Ishmael with the concubine, and God said Ishmael would have offspring as the sand of the sea, just like Isaac did. And the sons of Ishmael are, generally speaking, the Arabic tribes of today. And you can see that they're constantly striving with Israel. And another historical note on that, and I don't know how accurate this is, but it sounds plausible, is that Muhammad said, the fake prophet that started the Muslim religion or Islam, he said that the true son of blessing, in direct contradiction to the Bible, was Ishmael. And so the Israelites, the sons of Isaac, deserve to die. And that's why Islam is continually at war with Israel, because they have a direct contradiction or lie with the Bible and believe that Israel is evil and needs to be put to death because they're not the son of blessing. They stole the blessing. So you see how history has worked itself out in all of these things, even leading to present day. It's crazy. It's very crazy. But when you study history, you begin to see how obviously true the Bible is. Now we have another really good one, a cool one here with God meeting Moses. And this one, again, would be terrifying, especially if you didn't know the God of Israel. But even to the Israelites, this miracle was terrifying. Exodus 19, verse 14. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day. Come not at your wives. So be celibate for holy reasons, right? Because you're going to meet God. Verse 16. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mountain. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. All right, trying to say this was a volcano is falsifying this miracle. Lava didn't come up from the ground and set the mountain on fire. This says the Lord descended upon the mountain in fire. And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. Now, you keep reading here, and this is the portion of the book of Exodus where God tells Moses what to write. This is where I firmly believe the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, were recorded by Moses as a direct hearing the voice of God, God telling him what words to use. That's how we have the stories before Moses. Moses was directed by God to write things down. So my opinion is that this is when the first 5 books were written, in this time period here where he keeps going up to the mountain and talking to God. And we do know that Moses wrote the first 5 books, but it's not recorded in history on when he actually wrote them. It could have been at the end of his life. Okay. We don't know for certain, but we do know about the 10 Commandments. And that's the next miracle here. And God actually wrote with his finger on the stone tablets. That's pretty cool. So I wanted to run through the 10 Commandments really fast, and then we will get into more miracles after that. But Exodus 20 is where the 10 Commandments are. God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's number 1. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. That's number 2. And graven means carved. And it says thou shalt not make. So clearly he's saying any fake gods that humans make, right? And he describes those as a likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. So don't make the mistake of hating God, because your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will pay for it. That's a harsh one. And showing mercy upon thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. That's number 3. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Now, the name of the Lord thy God in vain is the Hebrew word shav, which is desolate or evil. Literally, it means morally guile, or figuratively, idolatry, false. So deceptively, falsely, with malice, with evil intent, lying, or doing it for the wrong reason, out of vanity. And it describes a little bit further in Leviticus 19:12, and you shall not swear by my name falsely. So I swear to God, I will, if you do that falsely, that's a sin. Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. So it should always be with that reverence that you're talking about the God of the universe, and not make his name less than what he is. Does that make sense? So be careful on swearing by God's name. That one's a big deal. They're all a big deal. I don't know why I said that. But verse 8, it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now that was the last day of the week. So traditionally, historically, that's Saturday. All right. But the New Testament worshipers, the apostles, worshiped on Sunday in honor of his resurrection. And the Bible clearly states that which day you worship actually doesn't matter if you read the New Testament, as long as you set aside a day. Exodus 20 verse 9, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughters nor thy manservant, and so on. Clearly to honor what God did in creation. Then verse 12 is the 5th commandment, honor thy father and mother. Verse 13 is the 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill. And I wanted to point this one out really quick. It says, rotzak, which is to dash in pieces or murder. And Leviticus 24 verse 17 says, he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death. So this is not a never kill a human. This is never murder a human. The unjust killing, oftentimes premeditated. So if you read the rest of the book, you'll see the specifics on that. People like to say that thou shalt not kill means you as a Christian should not join the military and so on, and that is not true. Verse 14, thou shalt not commit adultery. Adultery is literally breaking up a marriage, sex with someone that is married, when they're not married to you and you're having sex with them, or you're married and you're going outside the marriage and having sex with somebody. All right. Thou shalt not steal. That's a no-brainer. That's number 8. Number 9 is thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Literally, this says thou shalt not speak untruth as a witness against your neighbor. The word for witness means lawfully recorded. It does not say thou shalt not lie. Now, I want to understand this. Lying is still not a good thing. Jesus is the truth and the life. We have to seek the truth. The Bible says, if any man lie and the truth is not in him, he is of his father, the devil, etc. We know that lying is bad, right? But this commandment does not say thou shalt not lie. It's talking about defrauding your neighbor in court to where he'll lose things because you told a lie. So yes, breaking this commandment is lying, but this commandment is not, thou shalt not lie. So be careful in teaching that in the 10 commandments. I know we break it down and make it simple for children, and we say, well, it basically means not lying. It's not really what it's talking about. Remember, we talked about Shiphrah and Puah, the midwives who lied to Pharaoh to save children, and God blessed those women for it. There are other places that people lied in the Bible to save lives, and God blessed them. Lying cannot be a sin in and of itself because God does not bless sin. So don't get confused. Those specific things that I'm talking about are exceptions. God does not like liars. He does not endorse lies. He's not a deceiver like Allah who wants people to lie. Just know that God looks on the heart motive, just as much as the action when he judges people. All right. So that one's kind of a fine line there. But, like people who saved the Jews during the Holocaust and lied to the Nazis. Oh no, I'm a Nazi, to avoid jail and stuff. I don't think those lies were sins. Now you may think that they are, and that's fine. That's between you and God, but just know that this commandment is not, thou shalt not lie. It's don't bear false witness in court against someone, which would be a lie, right? All right, enough on that. Exodus 20, verse 17, thou shalt not covet. And then it lists all the different ways of coveting. And all the people saw the thunderings and lightings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And then when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. I'm sorry. Excuse me. This is the proper fear of God. Actual fear and awe of his judgment, as well as respect of who he is and his power, understanding his holy authority, his sovereignty, and the fact that he is the almighty creator. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep searching for truth. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, I really appreciate you listening. Please share this stuff. But I wanted to talk real quick about the end times and modern day stuff and maybe get some emails from you. Remember, my email is angrypatriot42@yahoo.com. If you can think of some modern day stuff that fits with the book of Daniel and Revelation in regards to those end times, the end of the world, like the mark of the beast, cryptocurrency versus cash. Keep in mind, Revelation talks about how there's going to be that mark where you have to buy things by either having a mark in your forehead or in your hand. And it's not that far a move from cash to crypto to a mark in your body. I mean, we've already seen testing of like the little microchip that's smaller than a grain of rice that they put under people's hands. That's actually happening around the world. Just so you know, I've seen video of people going into Walmart and waving their hand over the scanner, and it actually gets like an account number, credit card number, or bank account, and debits their account and pays for their stuff. That is happening today. Okay. Just so you know, but I can see how getting rid of cash, going to a fully digital currency will accelerate that process and make it easy to do that for everybody. So those are the fulfillments of prophecies that I see present day, like the rise of a one world government. Just think of the fake Joe Biden presidency. It's very clear he was controlled by other people. The most powerful person in the political world, in the most powerful country in the world, okay, was not actually running things. Somebody was behind him. Think about that. I don't care what you call it. I'm not, I'm not touting a particular conspiracy here, like the Illuminati or Knights Templar or what, I'm not talking about that stuff, but I'm saying the reality is think about COVID too. Here's another thing, guys. Did you know that there were like 4 different countries that the president or the prime minister of those countries stood up and refused to take the WHO shipments of the vaccines? The World Health Organization was sending shipments of vaccines around the world for the populace. And those 4 leaders were all assassinated within 1 year. Did you know that? There are people somehow, somewhere, an organization somewhere that literally decides who will rule countries. Well, when you read the book of Daniel and you read the book of Revelation, you see that there are 10 kingdoms. And the Antichrist rises up out of them, the little horn that comes up and takes over all of them and declares himself God. So there is already in place some nefarious group of people that are deciding who rules which countries. Joe Biden's a prime example. If you don't see that, I'm sorry, 4 years of him stumbling, not being able to talk, and clear dementia, like, come on. Not to mention his campaign where he never showed up, never held a rally. It was like campaign from the basement type thing, because they didn't want, before he ever became president, they didn't want him in the public eye because people would see his dementia and the fact that he couldn't run a country. So it should be obvious to you now that we are in the last days and that there are people conspiring together to run the world without our consent, without our knowledge. Well, I think those are the 10 kingdoms of Revelation and Daniel. If you guys got anything else, let me know. Send me an email. I would love to get into that and then send you some more, do another podcast specifically on the Revelation. Anyways, thanks again for listening, guys. God bless y'all.